Their names are legendary. Their destinies linked. An ageless myth meets an uncompromising master. Francis Ford Coppola brings an undying legend to life. Dracula. Beware.
Hello and welcome back to Almost Cult Classics, the podcast. My name is Joe Ramoni, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host Ryan Lancello.
Howdy, folks.
We're talking today about Bram Stoker's Dracula, the 1974 film starring Jack Palance.
Oh, I was ready to jump down your throat there for a second.
Yeah.
I'm like, the fuck are you talking about?
So obviously we're talking about the Coppola film from 1992, but Dracula's been adapted to death, and one of those adaptations was with Jack Palance from the Dark Shadows creator, also called Bram Stoker's Dracula. But then I think when Coppola did this movie, he bought the title Bram Stoker's Dracula, so then that one became Dan Curtis's Dracula, and then some sites list this as just Dracula, and then I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't
like
know
on
about
IMDb or something, it's just Dracula. But we wanted to do a Coppola episode for a while, and this seemed like a good choice because it's fairly underappreciated, I would say, in terms of at least his filmography. I don't think a lot of people associate this movie with him.
Well, this falls kind of, let me see here, kind of falls right at the end of what you'd call, it kind of sounds stupid to say because he's worked with the studios always, but his studio era. Like after he was kind of financially ruined and he was a gun for hire. This kind of comes at towards the end of that, although, what is Jack next?
After this, actually...
Jack and the Rainmaker.
Yeah,
so
Jack and the Rainmaker.
He's still kind of in there, and then he starts getting into, like, you know, Tetro and Twixt and Youth Without Youth. And
yeah, I mean, this seems to be one of the last kind of big studio films he does, at least as far as the budget goes, right? I would imagine.
Well, we'll get into all this as we go out throughout the episode, but it did pull him out of that hole financially, this movie. This movie kind of hit finally, and for however many years since One from the Heart, it filled that hole, but Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, so One from the Heart, I wasn't really that familiar with his huge near bankruptcy that happened to him from One from the Heart, basically, because the movie grosses about $600,000 on $26 million. That's 82. So even like after both Godfathers, like that still hurts you, like
dude. Not only after both Godfathers, after Apocalypse Now. But you understand he was totally flush, right?
Yeah,
and he had all the juice in the world. So why not build my own fucking playland essentially and make the very personal movies I want to make? Thing is, he gambled. He gambled it all, and he lost it all. But as I said, One from the Heart, we maybe should just do an episode on that one day because there's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, I've never seen that. We talked about when we were going to this episode. I actually almost read the Dracula book, but I flipped through it and I was like, nah.
I almost did too.
I can't do this.
I'm reading too many other books.
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
I didn't have the fucking time.
So I watched a lot of other Dracula adaptations, which I'll kind of talk about. You watched a few Coppola films you hadn't seen, not some of the early stuff. I also watched a few Coppolas. I had never seen The Godfather Part 2 all the way through. I had never seen The Godfather 3, and you and I both watched the new cut Coda. And I think I have a lot to say about it. I don't know how you feel, but
I think we might be diametrically opposed on this one.
So we figured that's going to be this month's Patreon follow-up. We're going to talk exclusively about The Godfather Part 3, Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone. Title that just rolls off the tongue there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were going to do Jack, and I just happened to watch The Godfather Part 3, and I was like, all right, I have to talk about this movie. So if you support us on Patreon, patreon.com/almostcultclassics, we're going to post a follow-up discussion where we talk about The Godfather Part 3 and the atrocities that come along with it.
Says you.
Yeah. Well, beyond that, The Godfather Part 2, I had watched, what's the chronological cut of those movies? There's one 9-hour cut.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, didn't HBO or Netflix or some other company do that?
I think about 4 or 5 years ago they put it out on their streaming, and I think I watched up till Godfather 1 ends, but that still includes the prequel stuff from Part 2.
Right.
Which I always thought was some of the best scenes in that movie. But now watching it full contextually, some of the best stuff also was in the whole plot with Fredo and Michael and everything else. I thought it was really strong, some of that stuff.
I don't know how I feel about that, watching the thing chronologically.
Yeah.
I don't get the point.
Do you think one of the surprises in watching Godfather Part 2 was the flashback at the end. And I feel like that's
what a great
like,
scene.
Yeah.
That's a really good scene.
It comes kind of out of nowhere, and you don't expect it. And then as these characters show up, you're like, oh, wow, this is it really, it hits home because you've just watched him turn into this other person. But, yeah.
So what'd you think? Everyone, that's always the question. What's better, 1 or 2?
I'm still a fan of 1 more. Godfather Part 2 was good. I love the prequel stuff. I've always loved that. I've always been fond of it. It's essentially a foreign film. I mean, because it's very little of it's in English, I feel like.
Yeah.
And De Niro, the fact that he's speaking Sicilian. I love that segment where the landlord comes to see him and can't get in, can't open the lock. And, like, it's just to see that character progress, and it was great. But, yeah, Part 2 stuff was good. I really got to sing the praises of John Cazale. I don't think he gets enough. I know people always bring up that fact that, like,
yeah.
hey, 5 movies, they're all nominated Best Picture, but...
And engaged to Meryl Streep.
Really, like, nuanced, unsung actor. And because I also watched The Conversation, which he's in, and just a great... I mean, it's one of those cases where, like, you would have kept him up on, like, where Pacino and De Niro went. He would have gone similar roles,
He was tracking in that direction, that's for sure.
I also did watch Apocalypse Now for the first time, which I wasn't prepared for that one.
Thumbs
no,
up.
I liked it. I mean, it's that's like a movie that just every frame is amazing.
Well, it's one thing. I mean, because I had to fill in a lot of gaps for this show, and I watched a lot of Coppola I hadn't seen, and even his shitty movies, and they're there. They're amazing to look at. Like,
yeah.
I mean, beautiful to the point where it's too good. And a lot of that'll come from, he's worked with such good DPs like Vittorio Storaro, who I've brought up before. He did The Conformist, which is probably the best looking movie ever. He did a lot of these Coppola movies, and he worked with Dean Tavoularis too. The production design on these movies it's like amazing. It's breathtaking.
There is a scene in Jack where all the kids put a bunch of shit and sardines into a big bowl, and Bill Cosby dips his bare hand in and eats it, and it's just, I want that painting. I want that frame recreated. So I guess after One from the Heart, that's when he has some financial troubles.
I guess that's where I popped in because everything with the exception of his his early movies when he's at USC and like I'll probably get around to him eventually. Funny enough, Armand White, one of the only people I read like film writer wise. Who he's a total asshole, and I disagree with him on like almost everything, but he's really fun to read. I really recommend people check him out. He's a big Zack Snyder fan.
Really?
Which is, the guy, it's so funny. He's like a really smart writer. You could tell because he won't let you forget. He has to like really, like, I'm very intelligent, but he fucking loves Zack Snyder. I don't understand it. But, we've all got our blind spots.
At least someone does.
Anywho, I guess Dementia 13, Criterion put it out on something or whatever. He wrote a good article about it, and I was going to watch it, but alas, I did not. However, that studio era I was talking about, kind of between Jack and after Apocalypse Now, those are all the movies I'd never really seen, so I watched a bunch of them, starting with One from the Heart, which I won't get into it too much, but man, just visually, amazing.
Really?
Like insane. Like that they could do this, and you could see there's a bunch of behind the scenes and documentaries about it. I really recommend checking them out. I think one's called The Dream Studio, and what they did on One from the Heart was just fucking amazing, and it was doomed to fail.
Yeah, why do you attribute that failure to? What do you attribute it to?
Well, one was it's almost like he can't get out of his way. Someone else said this. I had read it. It's like he's one of the worst commercially minded directors in a sense, because he takes this movie and in One from the Heart, it's not a musical per se, but there's music throughout it, kind of informing the story. And it's Tom Waits and Crystal Gale singing, and it's kind of this old like dirty lounge music, and it's Tom Waits. Hey babe, why don't you come over and love me a little? Like, you know what I mean?
It's got the Vegas backdrop, so it's
exactly. And I loved it.
Yeah.
However, I don't think anyone wants to sit through 2 hours of, and then I held her, but she wouldn't hold me, maybe. Like, bad choice.
Well, it's funny you mention that because, you know, I'm someone that appreciates long movie occasionally, but there is certain pacing issues with some of these movies.
A lot of them,
And
especially with Dracula.
I went to start Jack last night just to refresh. And the timeline came at the bottom of the screen, an hour and 53 minutes. And
Jack does not need to be that long.
Do you remember I didn't remember the opening of Jack. It's his parents at a Halloween party, and she goes into labor prematurely, like at 7 months. But the whole scene, they're like in the hospital. The husband's dressed as the Tin Man, and she's the Wicked Witch, dude. And it goes on. And then, like, the whole opening credits is, like, them doing experiments on this baby, and he's cute. And, like, it's, like, 9 minutes of just before you even get to, like, what Jack is about. And there's certain things like that where you're like, all right, you can cut this shit.
Yeah.
And he's a filmmaker that has recut his movies.
Which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, by the way.
No, I'm not either.
Like, if you get royally fucked and say, like, it gets taken away from you and you can't cut the movie you want to cut, yeah, go recut it. But, like, this, like the nth fucking version of Blade Runner, like, enough already.
Yeah,
like,
it's like you have to research which version you need to watch.
Yeah, and, like, at a certain point, it's like, fuck it. Like, Blade Runner's good. It's not that good.
Yeah, I mean, so, again, we're going to get to it after this show, but with Godfather Coda, it was only because I hadn't seen Part 3 to begin with, and I was like, all right, it just came out a few months ago.
Yeah, you got to
I feel like this is I'm not going to watch it twice now.
You should totally watch Godfather 3 if you haven't. Like, Apocalypse Now, like the Redux version, which isn't even... He came out and did another cut after that. I fucking love it. Longer. I want it longer because I love that shit. I've said it before on the show. That French plantation scene, I love. I feel like everyone hates it.
You know what? Like, I shouldn't say put me off. It was jarring to witness in Apocalypse Now when that water buffalo was slaughtered, and it's like it's not special effects. They're chopping this thing's like head off, and it takes more than one swing. And I've come to realize about Coppola is that he loves that intercut stuff of like showing this big ceremony or this event, intercutting it with other things going on. I mean, The Godfather is a classic example of that.
All of them do that.
Yeah.
All of them
and
start.
Dracula does it too.
Yeah. They all start with that, like, big party. And yeah.
He loves, like, doing a ceremony. In Dracula, it's the wedding. In Godfather, it's the baptism. Like, he loves doing that type of stuff. And I don't know. I think that some of this stuff could be a little bit tighter, but hey, you know what?
Well, there's something to be said for artistic indulgence.
Of course.
You kind of want an artist to indulge and go for it, like swing for the fences. And, you know, we'll go back to One from the Heart. He does it. And not only does he swing for the fences there, and if he succeeds, well, you know, it's subjective, it's up to you. But he pushed a lot of film technology ahead with One from the Heart, like previs and editing and all sorts of electronic shit, which I probably should hate him for. But a shitty bomb, I shouldn't even shitty, I liked it, a total bomb.
Yeah, really, really bad.
Pushed the industry forward in a lot of ways. And that does not, he gets no credit for a lot of the technical advancements he helped usher in.
Sure.
He gets zero credit for that. And, you know, whatever. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, it follows up that with The Outsiders, which is a relatively short film. It's only like an hour and a half.
You ever read the book?
I have not.
I read it.
I feel like it was a school assignment that I blew off at some point.
Book's fine. Dude, so, okay, I had never seen the movie Outsiders. We're Rumblefish, which is also by S.E. Hinton, who wrote Outsiders. And
Yeah.
Rumble, yeah, obviously. So he makes these two back-to-back on location in Oklahoma. Dude, they're both good. They're so fucking mopey.
Yeah, we talked about this when we talked about The Many Saints of Newark. You kind of hate that boomer, you know, recalling their youth bit.
I don't even necessarily mind that. Like, The Outsiders itself was written, she was a teenager when she wrote it. It was written of the era. It wasn't like looking back and being like, oh, well, remember the Greasers?
Well, that's the book, but he's when he makes the movie, he's going...
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like he grew up in Oklahoma. Like, regardless, they're fucking mope fests. They're like dour films, and almost to the point of parody. Like, you don't know the story that well, but Johnny and Ponyboy are real good friends, and they rescue a bunch of kids from a burning house or church or whatever the fuck, and Johnny gets hurt. A beam falls on his back and gets paralyzed. And Johnny's like him and Ponyboy are the two princes of Mopeville. So Johnny's in the hospital.
Pop.
Yeah, and oh my god,
and Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, Dr. Pepper was good in this movie.
Can I ask you? Because
but hold on real quick.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So he's laying in this fucking hospital room, paralyzed, and it's almost laughable how It's like, look at this little kid and he's It's like, dude, all right already. Even though it's what happened.
It's like a TV movie type.
I got to say this, though. The Outsiders, gorgeously beautiful movie. Dude, Rumblefish is fucking insane. It's even mopier. And there's like nothing going on in the story. The story is almost irrelevant. But he shoots the movie in hyper stark black and white. He almost does it like a German expressionist film.
Huh.
Dude, it's an amazing looking movie. And if the story was even remotely interesting, it'd be a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And people wouldn't shut up about it.
Well, you know what's weird? I remember...
Dude, I could not... It was an amazing looking movie. And just the camera work was inventive.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these
movies...
movies...
And it's in service of almost nothing, story-wise.
When I started The Outsiders. I didn't get to finish it, but when the opening credits were going on, I noticed that a character actor I'm really fond of that you don't see in much, Gaylord Sartain, was in it.
Your boy Gaylord Sartain was in it, yeah.
Who's he play in the story?
I've seen it for like 2 seconds.
Really?
He talks to Ponyboy. He's like, I wouldn't have done that. And like, that was kind of it. Or,
Gaylord Sartain
your boy's a hero.
It's like, kind of the better of in the Ernest movies, the duo. He was the better of the kind of comedy duo in that, and it's always nice when he pops up in things. He's always fun. What is he in? That movie with is it Hackman and William Dafoe? What's that movie? Mississippi Burning.
Yeah.
He's like the corrupt sheriff, and he's great.
Oh, he looks like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What your boy doing around this pot?
Yeah, I was going to say to you though. I remember a few years ago when Apocalypse Now or Redux came to theaters. There was a trailer of it, a trailer before whatever I was seeing, and I had never seen Apocalypse Now. So when it came on, and I didn't know it was like this classic movie. I was like, this movie looks fucking awesome. And then I was like, oh, it's Apocalypse Now. I have to watch it. And yeah, I'm really glad I saw that movie. It's a really cool movie.
And also, if you ever want to follow that up, Hearts of Darkness is
Okay.
the documentary about the making
of it.
and it's all his wife doing it, and it's great. Great
That's cool.
insight into fucking losing it in the jungle.
Oh
man.
yeah, it just looked hot and sweaty and gross and humid, but
Yeah, great documentary to check out.
Brando's showing up apparently heavier than he was supposed to be.
Way heavier. You got to do Coppola. All his whole history of filmmaking is filled with these stories of massive fuck ups that should have just buried it. And I got to give him credit. He found workarounds. He kept going. It's a persistence thing. He wouldn't stop. And you can hate him or love him, or
just when he thought he was out.
yeah, right.
All right.
A true enemy has yet to reveal himself.
I love that.
I'm pretty good with the impressions there. That Tom Waits was killer.
I love that Godfather 3. Fat Tony is the villain.
Yeah,
It's
right.
great.
Exactly.
I'm pretty peculiar. He sounds like Steve Martin in My Blue Heaven sometimes.
Who, Joe Montana?
Yeah.
A little bit. He's great, but we don't have to.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that.
digression.
So after Rumblefish, it's the Cotton Club.
I skipped it.
Okay,
I just didn't feel like watching it. I don't know.
it's like an old like jazz type prohibition-y movie, right?
It's the Cotton Club in Harlem.
Okay, yeah.
But I just didn't. I watched the trailer, and it's like,
It's got your boy Bob Hoskins in it.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, I didn't feel like watching it. It's probably fine. I'll probably revisit it, but it almost seemed like, because Robert Evans produced it, and he famously produced The Godfather.
Right.
And I think it almost struck me as him and Coppola, like, trying to get the magic back. Like, we're going to do this period. Like, and I'm like, you know what? Sometimes the artifice of Hollywood doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. It looked a little too clean for me, so I skipped it.
Any experience with Captain EO? Had you ever seen?
Oh, is that the Disney thing?
Yeah, it was like a Disney 3D short film, I guess. So it was only about like 20 minutes.
What did it play on?
Where or what?
Like, didn't it play before a ride or
so
something?
I had never seen it, but no, it was its own standalone thing. It got replaced with Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, I believe.
Okay. I think I saw that when I was there.
And
but I
then
mean, this is 14,
when
or no,
Michael-
24 years ago. Holy
When Michael Jackson died, I believe they then brought it back, and then Michael Jackson, came up back in the news. So I think now you can't watch either of them. But yeah, I think it was about like 20 minutes. Seemed to be successful. I mean, I don't know. At the time, it seems like it's visually. Again, he liked to do these like weird visual projects, and that just seemed one like, we'll make this 3D Disney ride with Michael Jackson. Sure, because that's what he's doing now. He's doing these weird movies that it seems no one really is interested in. But
That's what I'm saying.
He's like, cool
if
to
we
go.
ever come back from one from the heart, I'm gonna watch these first four, and then because those first four are before Godfather. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
sure.
it's like, okay, I'll see how he made his bones, and then I'd love to watch those three, Youth Without Youth, Tetro, and Twixt. But I think he shot them on digital, some of them, and that's like a big. I try to avoid that. I hate the look.
Yeah.
I've been avoiding Lynch's Inland Empire for years because it's shot on digital, and I'm like, I don't feel like fucking looking at it.
So after Captain EO is Peggy Sue Got Married, which you did watch.
4 stars.
Yeah?
I thought it was fucking great. Like,
4 out of 4?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Dude, once again, impeccably beautiful looking movie. The only downside is this idiotic, and I'm a Nicolas Cage defender. Kathleen Turner talks about this in her biography, which he sued her for defamation, and he won. Nicolas Cage. Anyway, he decides to put on like fucking like fake teeth, and he's doing this weird accent the whole movie, like, oh, Peggy. Oh. And like, she even said to Coppola, she's like, are you cool with this? And I guess, they're related. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I think he wanted him to do a goofy Nick Cage thing. And it, to be fair, kind of fits the character in the movie. But it's to a point where you're just like, is he going to drop this? It really takes you out of an otherwise fucking great movie and a very forgotten time travel movie in that genre.
Yeah, it's about a girl goes back to her high school after her like 25-year reunion, right?
Yeah, something like that.
She goes back in time as a high schooler.
Yeah, she faints or something like that, and she has like a little flat. But dude, it's great. It's
cool.
excellent.
Sounds a little bit like Pleasantville. It seems like there's kind of maybe some shades of not really time travel, but like going back to the 50s. I don't know.
Well, might be one to do on the show. But I remember liking Pleasantville.
It's funny. I know you're not a big Seth Rogen fan, but I did happen to read his.
I love the guy.
I'm going to use air quotes for memoir. I think it was more just a book of essays. But the best part of the book by far, and it should have been its own book, was him describing the experience, almost casting Nick Cage in not Kick-Ass, the Green Hornet as his villain. But Nicolas Cage wanted to do it as like a Rastafarian white drug lord, and like I think it was the head of Sony, whoever did that movie. Them and Seth Rogen went to Nick Cage's house, and he was doing this impression for them, and it wasn't working.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and like years later, he commissioned a project with them. Whoever Evan Goldberg, I think his name is Seth Rogen's writer, and they sit down at the booth in a restaurant, and Nick Cage goes, I did that impression for you. Did you ever tell your buddy James Franco about that? Because I see this movie Spring Breakers coming out. He's kind of doing the same thing. And Seth Rogen's like, no, that didn't happen. And Nicolas Cage just got up and left. Like, apparently he just has enough. When a situation gets uncomfortable, he just leaves.
That's the shit. That's awesome.
He has that type of pull where he can just leave the situation.
It's beautiful. I guess what everyone does. Just gotta walk away.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Peggy Sue Got Married, I could be willing to bet the same thing happened. He was like, yeah, I want to do this, go the Southern, with the teeth, and what are they, cousins, or how are they related? Coppola and him?
I think he's a nephew.
Okay.
I don't remember.
But, yeah, what do you do at that point? You're like, all right, yeah, you're my nephew. Do what you want. But, yeah, that's nice to hear. I might have to revisit Peggy Sue Got Married.
I was surprised how much I liked it. Like, I really liked it.
Also,
I have to say, Kathleen Turner, great actress. Kind of a bummer how she's just thrown on the fucking dustbin of history. We don't talk about her no more.
She comes up a bunch in this podcast, I feel like, because you did War of the Roses with the DeVito episode, and you watched the Romance of the Stone for Zemeckis.
This podcast defends Kathleen Turner.
And Chevy Chase. Those are our two.
All right,
You're a
Kathleen
Kathleen Turner apologist. I am a Chevy Chase apologist. But yeah, I'll have to check that out. Gardens of Stone is next, 87.
I don't know. I skipped it. I was like, what is this? It looks like it's is this a sad soldier coming home from Vietnam? I'm like, skip.
Yeah.
I'm done, dude.
I
told you in that Many Saints in Newark thing when we were talking about it, I'm done with fucking any war shit. I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
No more. So Gardens of Stone was a skip from me. It's probably a fucking great movie. I probably will never see it.
I like Jimmy Caan. I like him in pretty much everything.
He's great.
Yeah.
Do I want to see him be, Vietnam's going to be really sad? I bet. It's a fucking war.
Tucker, the Man in His Dream.
Watched it over the pandemic because I'd never seen it.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking for something, what's the best way to put it? Just normal movie to watch. Recommend.
Oh, cool.
It was a very nice movie. I mean, that was just a guy following his dream.
It looks like that way from looking at the poster. Just like, it looks like a happy movie.
Another movie, gorgeous to look at. Funny enough, I had one reaction afterwards because the movie is about this guy Tucker who basically was trying to build his own car to go up against like the big guys, right? And he gets it done. He builds the car. He builds like a couple hundred of them, and basically he gets fucked out of ever selling it ever. And the movie ended, and I went, "Wow, I hate this fucking country because all it does is ruin a good man with a good idea. But
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much it's a biofilm, right?
it's a true story.
Yeah.
And no, like, who would know? Like, and I guess I don't know. You see parallels today with that, like with maybe Tesla or something. But Tucker was no Elon Musk. But very interesting story. I would absolutely recommend checking that out. And it's gorgeous. Another beautiful film.
And then we have New York Stories, which he directed a segment of in '89. No,
Nah.
that might be one. We've talked about maybe doing some Woody Allen, a Woody Allen film on the podcast at some point.
I was just thinking about Radio Days and how much I like that movie. I love that movie.
Yeah.
And you know me, I hate nostalgia. Something about that movie, it's just perfect.
Same thing with you, like because you recommended Broadway Danny Rose to me, and we both are pretty fond of that movie. I checked out Play It Again, Sam, and I'm not a huge Woody Allen fan, but it's like the type of movie you watch, you're like, oh, fuck, that's a movie I would make.
Mm-hmm.
Like he does, and I hate to compare myself to him. I always got it in film school. My professors used to say, you should watch Woody Allen, and I'm like, no, fuck that, I'm not gonna watch it. But watching him Play It Again, Sam, I'm like, oh, he really did for a while get that angsty relationship. And
well, it's funny to what you said. I'm watching Peggy Sue Got Married, and maybe like 20 minutes into the movie, I'm like, I want movies to look like this. Like, this is how if I were to make a movie, this is how I'd want it to look.
Yeah.
And then you think to yourself, you go, well, are you ripping them off? You know what? You follow me?
Yeah.
Because I could ape that. Anyone could ape that style, but is it yours? And is it his? What is the ownership there when it comes to that? I don't know. It's an interesting question to maybe think about, but I don't know. It's tough. When you go to the artistic propriety, whether it's yours or theirs, or is it anyone's?
I
tend to believe nothing belongs to anyone.
When we talked about De Palma, we talked about that split focus he does. And I watched The Untouchables recently, and he does it a lot in there, too.
A lot.
But I saw it come up in All the President's Men. Like, I love that, but it's so distinctly him. But I'm like...
Coppola used it.
Yeah, I've seen it in his
he used a couple of them.
It's a really interesting, especially when characters are stood somewhere like in a pew, or in Untouchables. There's that scene where Sean Connery and Kevin Costner go to church, and he's like trying to recruit him, and it's great.
Yeah, but you can't not rip people off. Like that great scene with the steps in Untouchables. He's ripping off Sergei Eisenstein,
yeah, I mean
deliberately.
Even in Dracula, there's a few homages to various, not just horror films, but just cinema. Like he really homages some great stuff from cinema. Godfather Part 3 is 90, which we're going to come back to, and then we have Bram Stoker's Dracula. So was this, this factor into his, I need just to make money, I need to do something commercial, or was it more of a passion project, or...
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I wouldn't say passion project, because apparently Winona Ryder suggested the script to him. I guess there was a couple scripts floating around. Perhaps it's Dracula. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, because she pulls out a Godfather Part 3 pretty last minute. It was overworked apparently, and I guess that they developed some kind of relationship there, and she suggests this to him, or wants her to read him to read this script, and he comes into it. I feel like it's a very commercial film, but I think he still does things in it that are unique and interesting.
It's a very love letter to old cinema in the sense that the old effects go watch the movie for that.
Yeah.
If for nothing else, go watch and see how they used to make movies, because you're seeing it.
So had you seen this before?
No.
Okay.
I've seen that trailer about 1 million times. It's a very, very good trailer.
What did you think of it then?
I liked it.
Okay.
I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I liked it.
It's got some pacing issues, but it's...
And when you read... I didn't read the whole book, just like you, but when you read what's going on in Bram Stoker's novel, it's pretty faithful to the novel, and it's a little all over the place.
Well, as far as I know, people always say, it's the most faithful adaptation. He does one thing in this movie that's pretty, a drastic change, which is he ties it to Vlad the Impaler, which is not in the Dracula book, nor is the love story, which becomes a pretty big part of this movie.
The love story is not in the book, and
nor is the Vlad the Impaler stuff.
Yeah, well, that's not the biggest.
It's pretty. I know the book kind of was inspired by some of the things Vlad did, but here it's like he's Vlad.
Pretty
he
much.
did this. There's that great opening with the shadow puppets.
An amazing opening. It's almost one of those things. Like, you did too good a job up front, and it's like, can anything live up to this? How about that fucking armor?
That's
cool. Got to be the coolest armor ever. When he goes, and the movie starts in 1400, and Prince Dracula. I don't even
Yeah,
remember now.
Vlad the Impaler. Vlad
He's not.
Dracula.
Oh, he is Vlad Dracula.
Yeah, he's Vlad.
Oh man, I forgot
He's
that. Again.
no, he's literally Vlad the Impaler.
Oh.
They're tying these two things together because he's fighting against the Turks, and this might be one of the only films we've talked about that is as critically acclaimed as it is, because it does get nominated for 4 Oscars, winning 3. It wins for Best Makeup, Best Sound Effects, and Best Costumes, rightfully so.
Oh, the costumes, definitely.
Also gets nominated for Art Direction, but yeah, I mean, it's number 1 at the box office. It opens very close to right now, November 13th, 1992. It opens at number 1. It also opens with 2 other movies, Traces of Red, Love Potion 9, both of which I've never even heard of those movies.
I've heard of Love Potion number 9.
They do really poorly. Dracula dominates with 30 million that weekend, so it's a big hit right out the gate, which is interesting because like you look at a movie like this now, you're like, this R-rated, out there visually. Gary Oldman's not a huge star at this point. I guess Keanu and Winona are, but it's amazing that it came together the way it did, and that it made as much money as it did, because it's. On paper, it doesn't look like a hugely marketable film.
Yeah, but like, look at that trailer.
Yeah, with Anthony Hopkins' voiceover, and
it's just so good. Like it pushes up on him, so Dracula, and like just the music, like that shot of the train coming out of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's the fucking trailer could not be cut together better. But once again, it was financially successful enough to kind of pull him out of that hole that he created, almost fucking 2 decades earlier.
Yeah. So I pulled
one decade.
I did pull one, as I usually do. I pulled a review from Gleberman. The movie is a production designer's wet dream, a smorgasbord of surreal fairy tale backdrops of gore and magic and pyrotechnical stunts. It's the main show that Coppola fails to deliver, the shock and passion of Dracula's bloodlust. The director has dressed up a classic tale in mesmerizing visual overkill without coming close to its dark heart. So a lot of the critics say similar. They say it's a visually impressive movie. It doesn't come close to hitting what Dracula was. And, Dracula, I feel like, was such a perceived character, and that everyone associated him with that Lugosi, dark hair, black cape. I mean, even I just talked about the Jack Palance version. I watched that Frank Langella version. Like, they all depict him as dark hair, black cape. Like, this fucking old man in the beginning of this movie is awesome. It's great. It's great. It's a great way to do it. It really ties into...
Well, he said that, too. He didn't want the fucking widow's peak and the black cape.
Of course not. As I told Ryan, I said, all right, I'm not going to read the book. I'm going to watch a few Draculas. And one of the best ones I watched was the original Nosferatu.
Is not F.W. Murnau, I believe?
It's not technically Dracula, but... It's amazing, like, that was a time when you could, I want to adapt this book. No, we don't want you to do it. All right, I'm just going to make it. I'll call him something else, and you can get away with it. So it's really cool to see some homages to Nosferatu in this, with the shadows and the way the old vampire looks with his fingers. And it's cool that he, in making it different, he's also homaging different adaptations and styles. And Gary Oldman's just so fun, is that... For me, that was the best part of the movie. It's like the first half hour. I think it kind of starts to... That's
when it starts to peter out.
Yeah.
Because it's... Well, 1, 2, you're unfortunately, for lack of a better term, we'll say brainwashed to Dracula and vampires. Is that this is what they do. They bite you, you become a vampire, blah, blah, blah. This movie, and quite frankly, the story does not follow those rules at all. Dracula can walk around in the daytime. Mm-hmm. His powers are weakened. You don't just become a vampire if he bites you. There's like a whole nother to-do with it.
He has sex as a giant wolf monster.
Which, by the way, that fucking wolf monster is so spooky and cool looking. And that's the other thing, too. He doesn't, like, turn into a little bat. Yeah. He turns into this disgusting bat creature. Yeah. Great stuff.
He really gives old Lucy a pounding there as the wolf man.
Sure does.
Right in the middle of the courtyard.
But the thing is, I don't know if they're really fucking. I don't think they're having sex. I don't think he has sex. Well, he ravishes you. It's a ravishment.
There's a lot of, like, erotic kind of scenes in this movie.
It's supposed to be an erotic film.
And especially, like, the orgy scene, like, with the practical effects are great, with them rising from the sheets. And it's amazing. It's really...
Well, I should touch on that real quick. So, from the outset, he's like, I want to do this movie old style. No CGI, none of that shit, right? So the studio gives him an effects team, and they go, you have to. You can't just do this. You have to use CGI. So he fires them, and he hires his son, Roman Coppola. Good job, because they nailed it. They fucking nailed it. And for those of you that don't know Roman Coppola, he pals around with Wes Anderson. He wrote a couple movies with him. Wes Anderson's best, in my opinion, Darjeeling Limited.
He did that movie with Charlie Sheen a while ago.
Well, he did a couple of his own movies. He did one called CQ, and I remember I used to always see this in the video store. It's got one of those like multi-paneled posters with like characters' heads.
Yeah.
And it's set in the 60s, and they're like making sci-fi movies in France. And I was like, oh, this looks really cool. I never got around to watching it. And then he did the Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Swan III, I think it's called.
Okay.
Total fucking flop.
That's the Charlie Sheen one, right?
Right. And like it's that him and Wes Anderson, they like making movies with their little toys, but I don't know.
I give him credit because that was like at the peak when Charlie Sheen was saying fuck everything and fuck everyone, and he was like, all right, I'll work with you. Like it was
Sure.
Yeah.
But great call on bringing your son in to do the visual effects, because they ended up doing all in camera, all old style, rear projection, miniatures, force perspective.
But
it works so well.
Last month I did a video on Hats Off on Haunted Honeymoon, which is a similar concept. It's an 80s comedy movie that Gene Wilder directed. That was his thing. Like, I want to do the effects that they did in these old 30s screwball mystery movies. And, it looks a little silly, but it kind of gives it character. It has a really interesting look to it. It's not, like, super polished, but it's great to look at.
I think there's something to it that even if it looks silly and it's there, it's better.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell there was a lot of work that went into figuring out how to make this work. And for me, like, it really, I mean, that opening with the shadow puppets is really cool. But when Harker's on the train with that red background, they show the miniature of the train with the diary, like
the shot of the eyes in the sky is like my favorite. It might be one of my favorite shots ever.
Yeah,
it's so something. The sky is red, and those old eyes open up. They almost look like purpley. Oh, it's so good.
It's so interesting to me that he picks the Dracula story to make this love letter to film, because it's a story that's been done countless times. I think it's in the public domain.
At this point, it's gotta be.
So, like, it had been done countless times prior to this. It's been done countless times after. But the fact that he's like, I'm going to take this, I'm going to make it my way, I'm going to do all these visual things that haven't been done in a long time, and it works. It's, even the elements that are kind of like get looked at as being bad in this movie, which is primarily Keanu Reeves' performance, which even that I thought was like, yeah, it's not great, but it's not like.
Well, here's what I heard. It's to what you said earlier. Is this movie profitable? He was forced to hire Keanu to get the young girls in the theater. Which, okay, whatever. But apparently Keanu was trying so hard to get that London accent down that he, if you ever try something too hard, you won't be able to do it. And he just couldn't break out of that. And it's funny, man. Everything I hear about this guy, he's the nicest fucking guy. Coppola sings his praises. He says he's a prince. But sometimes you just can't do it.
Yeah.
And Keanu is not the right guy to do it. He's just his accent, I don't think he can overcome it. And Winona Riders a fucking dud in this movie too. I guess.
I could watch her pick bananas. Like I could literally watch her do anything and be.
I won't say this is the most beautiful she's ever been, but she is gorgeously beautiful in this movie.
I watched Heathers for the first time a little while ago.
Love Heathers.
And
I love my dead gay son.
And she was in that. She was great. And yeah, we talked about her before in our Tim Burton episode because she came up in what's it called, Edward Scissorhands. But yeah, I mean,
I don't think she's a very good actress. Period. I don't think she has much range.
Again, I think with this story, there's certain, like you said, they're going to let him go batshit with the visuals. You gotta kind of concede and put some star power in it. Especially when Dracula's Gary Oldman, who at that point, I guess, had not done that much, right? I mean, for American audiences.
I don't know. Here's the thing. I mean, I think this made a lot more sense back in the day, but like the idea of like, oh, you got to get a star to pull people in. I'm like, people really don't give a fuck anymore. Stars don't open movies that much anymore. Like they used to, I should say.
So, I mean, looking at his filmography up to this point, there's some, a few scattered in, but it looks like, for me, the one that looks out. I mean, he played Lee Harvey Oswald in JFK the previous year, but it's Sid and Nancy in '86. I feel like that was
that movie set America on fire.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Nobody cared.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
like,
okay.
That looking at that now, I'm like, I love this movie, but at the time, it's like, was anyone in America like a huge Sid and Nancy fan?
No one was rushing out to see Gary Oldman do anything.
Yeah,
as good as an actor as he is.
Quick aside. as we typically do, I've been going through these like film lists. I'm watching the movies, certainly, some of the ones, and this involves a story that me and you had experienced. But every once in a while, someone tells me their favorite movie is The Professional, and
It's fine. I haven't seen it in a while. I liked it.
He's good in it. Gary Oldman's good, but it was like
I liked it.
It was like, all right, it's an action movie. Like there was nothing like deep and profound about it to me. I thought it was a really fun action movie.
So much of this shit stems from people seeing a movie young, loving it, rightfully so. The Professional's great. It's good, but
the story that comes to mind with The Professional is before we started this podcast, we'd be having these conversations at a bar somewhere, and once in a while a stranger would wander into it. And there was a gentleman at a bar in Philadelphia that was telling us that The Professional was his favorite movie. And he was speaking in what sounded like an accent. And Ryan goes to him, well, where are you from? And he goes, no, I'm from America. And Ryan goes, no, really, where are you from? And he goes, I'm from America. I have a speech impediment. He had a speech impediment that made him sound as if he were...
It sounded like an accent.
It sounded like a European accent.
I wasn't being a dick about it. I was curious where he was from.
And then he tried to take out his phone and show us a movie trailer, and Ryan said, I'm not watching a trailer.
No.
So, kudos to you, Ryan.
Do my part.
But yeah, a lot of great... Excluding, those two, I guess, the Keanu and Winona, Richard E. Grant, we're big fans of, and Withnail and I.
Yeah.
Carrie Elways, and then, an early performance from him. Billy Campbell.
Carrie Elways was great in Cutthroat Island.
I love that we both thought it was him.
It's incredible.
I think everyone does. The poster intentionally looks
fucking Tim
like
on the
Carrie
poster.
Elways. But that's what I wanted to say. In a lot of the Dracula adaptations I did watch, it seems like a lot of those characters, like the other guys, get condensed into like one or two.
They do. I read the American that actually kills Dracula in this version. He's like never in the other ones, apparently.
He's like the cowboy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that I thought, I was like, this has to be like something Coppola invented for this. No. There's like an actual American...
Yeah, the three of them were, what was her, Lucy was her name? They
Lucy.
were her suitors, and then she eventually picked one, but everyone was just like, okay, we're all still friends, though. Like, that's the story.
And same thing with Tom Waits is in this as Renfield.
I can't do it every time. I'm like obsessed with doing it now.
But it was...
Hey, Dracula, I'm going to help you, baby.
I feel like a lot of other adaptations, Renfield sends Harker. It begins with him, like, sane.
Yeah.
And then... So it's interesting to see from the beginning, this guy lost his mind because of Dracula. He's in this... That's the asylum with the guys with the cages on their head for some reason. Yeah. Why is that a...
So they don't bite you? I don't know.
There's a couple things that I didn't understand in the plot. Keanu's gray hair. Is that supposed to be something that happens after
I think he was so depleted, and because they were essentially like feasting on him the whole time he was left there.
It doesn't look very good, though.
Well, that's the whole thing, too. It's like, why the fuck was he even there? Why did Keanu go? I know it was to help.
To bring the documents to get signed. Because
I understand it, but then he's there, and then, like, so that was it. That's all he needed was just the documents, Dracula.
I guess so.
He left.
You know what? Like, here's another thing. Again, I don't know if this was in the book, but you have in all the adaptations that scene where Harker stops at the inn before going to the castle. And he's like, oh, I'm in town to see Count Dracula, and all the people stop eating. So it was nice that there's certain elements that, like, are in all these that either he omitted because they have been done to death, or he admitted because they aren't in the book. Either way, I like that the plot begins, he's in Transylvania, he's in the castle, there's none of this long, drawn-out...
Gets right to it.
Yeah.
And all the stuff when he's, like, riding there with, like, the carriage man.
Yeah, that's pretty
that's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's another one. I really would suggest people watch the behind-the-scenes on the effects on this film. It's really impressive.
Yeah, the combined imagery in terms of, like, the scene transitions and the diary pages with the backdrops. It's really cool.
Just like you wonder, like, why where is that artistry anymore? I worry that it's going away to programmers who have no artistry whatsoever. When it comes to this, at least, in their domain.
Where do you think the design for old Dracula's hair came from?
I don't know.
That's real, like, because you've seen that movie invented this, right? Like when you see that. It's been in The Simpsons and things like that, but that was
that look I remember was parodied like endlessly. It felt like
Dracula Dead and Loving It. I feel like is a direct result of this movie,
and it's great too because like they were going in other directions with the costumes and stuff, and apparently the costumer is Japanese, and she was using a lot of like Japanese influences.
I think that's why he wears like kimonos and
and if you look at, like I know Coppola was using a lot of Gustav Klimt paintings.
Okay.
And if you go look at them, like a lot of it has that same imagery. It's good stuff, man. The costumes are bar none in this movie.
Yeah, I mean makeup too. And
Oh, yeah.
not only that, there's a couple like I wouldn't call it a scary movie. There is a couple like eerie visuals, like him crawling down the fucking wall. Because it looks like it's like that Batman 66 type of technology, but it's done in a way where it's just so creepy, and he's I guess going to eat wolves or something at that point, right?
Who
It's
knows?
fun.
But I think I'm telling you too. When he's in that wolf thing and that bat thing, it's eerie, like you
Yeah.
said. It's like I'm like that movie's not really scare me. I'm not gonna be scared by a fucking movie.
I like
but...
to a couple things that are really interesting, like his fangs grow, and that's I assume a practical effect that was applied, just little teeth that grew, and I like how it's one of these things where Dracula gets younger the more he feeds. Like it works. It's part of who he is.
Yeah.
And when he doesn't, he gets back to that old looking gross guy. But the thing that I like that I don't quite understand, why does Dracula have to bring the dirt with him?
So the whole thing is he either has to sleep in a coffin or he has to be in the dirt of his homeland, essentially. So that's why he's moving all the Transylvanian dirt to London, so he can be in London and
Because
not, fall apart.
The one thing that's really interesting about Nosferatu is with him, he brings rats and the plague. So that, again, not reading the Dracula book, I was like, maybe that's where and so when it doesn't really go that way, and there are rats in this movie when I think he's on the ship when his body becomes that's a whole nother great sequence when he's on the boat coming over. And yeah, just the different forms Dracula takes. Like you said, there's the Wolfman, there's the giant bat creature, which I'm assuming was Gary Oldman in all this makeup, right?
I think it was, yeah. I know the wolf one was. I think they both were, yeah. And he didn't like them either. He was not happy being in them.
I'm sure not. Yeah,
but just like the green mist he turns into, like everything. It's very well done.
Yeah, I mean, the shadows in the windows and things like that. It seems like everything that is done in a way that would have been done decades ago.
And it was.
Yeah. Especially like that scene where Dracula sees Mina for the first time. I feel like that's almost like hand crank camera style. Like
you mean when they're on the street?
Yeah.
It's an old camera.
That's amazing.
They fucking put it up on a crane like you would with like a Panavision.
Yeah.
It's an old crank thing.
Yeah, because there's a couple frames missing.
Yeah.
It's lagging, but it's.
Oh yeah, that's an old cat, and they had to dig that out. Like it's those things are fucking impossible to operate
I'm
now.
sure. Yeah, and then you have to have Gary Oldman waiting around to get the lighting right. I'm sure he was happy with that. But yeah, there's so many great different. That's what I mean. You would think for like all these different visuals coming together, it'd be like a clusterfuck, but it kind of works. And
Visually.
But that scene shortly afterwards, where the wolf comes, they're at the carnival. There's like porno playing in the background. There's so much shit going on, but it's just like it's captivating.
Yeah.
For me, the movie starts to lag a little bit after he arrives, but then Anthony Hopkins shows up,
Who's great.
who gives the
Van
amazing
Helsing.
performance. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny, like I look at him in this movie and I'm like, so this is what they were trying to go for in that Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman. They were trying to go for this character because he's fucking great. He with the hat and the kind of. Is he supposed to be funny in this movie?
I think kind of. It's his attitude is supposed to be funny.
Dude, that scene where he's talking in the pub with them about how they cut the girl's head off.
And not only that, it cuts to that hilarious scene of them all. They should all be smoking cigarettes or something. They're all sitting there with the head.
There, yeah.
It's such a good. Well, they had to kill.
Yeah.
We cut off her head.
we had to cut her head off. And the scene when they're doing that, and she's spitting the blood at him, and he's great. He's always
Another reason to watch this movie. You could do it for him.
And I think that's why Winona and Keanu might not come off good, because they're being surrounded by fucking Oldman and Anthony Hopkins.
You're blown off the screen. You can't.
And
well, baby, like you can't do Keanu. I'm trying to do him doing a British accent.
It's like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. You can't.
A little bit.
But yeah, Anthony Hopkins shows up as Van Helsing, and I feel like in the other stories, Van Helsing is just like this very like wise yet inquiring professor. But like here he's badass. You know, he's got the stakes, he's got the things,
and he's totally self-assured.
Yeah,
like he knows. He's like, no, we got to do this.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, that's another cool thing, too, when Lucy is dead and she's, like, gray. And just the little nods and different makeup choices really tell the story.
When she's pulling that little girl into the crypt That's pretty.
Yes.
That may have gotten me. I was
Yeah.
like, oh fuck, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, and I love that the Eucharist wafer causes the burn, and then the cross, how they just get back in the coffin and kind of, it looks like reverse sped. Like I feel like that's how they did it, right?
It is.
Yeah. She goes into the coffin, but it's very, the way it looks like she just goes back to sleep, but it's reversed.
It's such simple stuff they use too. Like there's one scene, I forget exactly what. It's something, I think it's Keanu's reading a diary, and it's like kind of the letters are projected onto his face. They just projected letters onto his face.
Yeah.
Like when candles are lighting themselves, you just play it backwards. Like that's all you really need to do sometimes.
Well, can we talk about too how this movie, I think, really revitalized the vampire genre and gothic horror genre?
Yeah, I mean, because really, what was before this? Like you said, the guy in the cape with the blood.
Yeah. And then you have like Interview with a Vampire, I think, comes after this, only a couple years after this.
Which is a great movie. Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't like that movie.
Why?
I'm not into like that whole like vampires are these sexy I don't know. There's something about it that just never.
I'm with you. I don't care about it at all, but you didn't. The two of them. Tom Cruise in Interview with a Vampire is so good as Lestat.
Kirsten Dunst really unnerves me in that. And when it comes to vampires, like, and I've talked about this on my channel and other things, I like the 80s, like Fright Night. I like Lost Boys. I like that type of vampire stuff. When it comes to like these gothic era like sex gods, like that's why I didn't really care for that Frank Langella version, which I guess is based off a play. It's based off the Broadway version of Dracula.
Okay.
But he plays it as just like, the shirt's opened a lot and like he's just like so like I'm sexy Dracula. I don't know. That's why I like Nosferatu, because it's like he looks like a fucking a creature of the night as he is.
I would agree. They kind of have to. You're a demon,
but
essentially.
That's why I like this, because it deals with both of those. It
That's
deals
true.
with, you do look with those hairy palms in the beginning.
Let me ask you something. As I never watched the Twilight movies, do they have a vampiric state?
I have no idea.
Where they're like their true form, or are they just hot?
No, I think that's it. I could be wrong.
That's kind of lame. I don't know. I didn't get into that.
As far as, because I have the Blu-ray of this, it also comes packaged with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which also I feel like was a result of this movie, which I think is Kenneth Branagh directed that as well. I know he stars in it.
Yeah, if he did, that was the era where he was directing and starring and all his shit.
I'm a big fan of his work, but I feel like, and I've never seen it, but I feel like casting De Niro kind of wasn't the best call. Kenneth Branagh did direct the movie, and he also plays Victor Frankenstein with De Niro as the creation. But yeah, it seems like there's that, and then that Wolf movie came out with Nicholson. Like everyone was like,
Wolf.
Yeah,
that was good.
It's not bad. It's
Mike
pretty,
Nichols.
Mike Nichols, yeah.
I love Mike Nichols.
Innocent Blood, another movie I'm fond of. I've talked to you about. It's about mobsters getting infected by a vampire.
Oh, right.
And it's great because it deals with garlic in the food. It's such a great. I feel like that was the pitch for that movie. They were like, well, Italians eat lots of garlic in their food, so we have to do a vampire.
That's the pitch. You're so right. Holy shit, dude.
Robert Loggia plays this fucking crusty mob boss who falls for this vampire and bites him, dude. And they all start to become vampires. It's great. It's got a lot of early Sopranos.
Robert Loggia. I'm so sad he's dead.
Don Rickles plays his attorney. He gets bit and becomes a vampire. Dude, it's really fun.
Oh, you bit me, hockey puck.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, right. I'm a nice guy.
Hey, I come to here all the time. I see who does the shoes. Vinny Gubazza.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so I feel like this movie definitely revitalized that genre and kind of made people look at these old monster materials again and start adapting
it got corny.
Yeah.
The whole idea of it got corny, and he brought it back to something more. It was smart to go to the source.
Yeah, for sure.
And don't fuck with it too much. And he really didn't. It's the source material.
I mean, you kind of have to do that love story to kind of make it appealing, I guess, to a certain extent. And the Vlad the Impaler stuff, again, I know that's something he brings into it, but Dracula's loosely inspired by him to begin with, so it's not like he goes too far out of the realm for that.
And the love stuff, it gives it good motivation because he has that great line. And I read that, like, Gary Oldman didn't give a shit at all about playing Dracula, but there's one line in the script that he was like, I would have done the movie just to say this line. It's, I've traveled oceans just to see you again. Or sorry, I just fucked the line up. I've traveled oceans of time just to see you again, or something like that. Oceans of time. Great line.
My favorite Dracula line, and it's in all these adaptations,
is
blood. Yeah, that's right. I want to suck your blood. No, it's 1, 2 of 3 chickens.
There's 2 hacks right here. So.
Is children of the night, what sweet music they make. And Dracula Dead and loving it. It's what a mess they make, and he slips on a pile of shit.
I remember being so excited to rent that movie. And I, as a kid, when you're a kid and like every movie's great.
Yeah.
Because they're movies.
Yeah.
That was one of the first where I remember being like, you're sitting there as like a 9-year-old, like, I like this. The best part of the movie is when the blood they go to
God, yeah. She just ate.
That got me.
I'm going to check that out after rewatching this because I feel like I might understand it a bit more. But when I got to meet Mel Brooks at a Q&A, I said, can you tell us a story about Leslie Nielsen? I asked about John Candy and Leslie Nielsen, and he told this great. It's almost like he expected to be asked that because he had this fucking anecdote ready to go. Where there's a scene where Dracula's lurking or something, and a guy comes up, and Dracula steps out of the shadows and goes, "Hello, sailor." And he was like, as written, it was supposed to be deadpan, like, "Hello, sailor," but Leslie Nielsen refused to compromise on Dracula's voice as if he was making this serious Dracula. Like, it probably took it more serious than Gary Oldman did in this. And he was like, no matter what he did, he could not get him to say it deadpan. He just kept going, "Hello, sailor." Like, that's when he kind of started to fall into his "I'm a comedian" trap.
Who, Leslie Nielsen?
Yeah, and started mugging and.
Dude, it's the worst. I have had this argument with people before. Once someone's in on the joke's over.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a great example. Someone who we both like, you probably more than me, Jeff Goldblum, right? For years, he was kind of a meme. He'd joke about Jeff Goldblum. Oh, well, like the whole Jeff Goldblum shtick. Well,
very good. But
he became self-aware of it. So now all of a sudden he's doing the Jeff Goldblum character in stupid commercials. And didn't he have some dumb show? Jeff Goldblum.
He's got a Disney show. He really.
It's like, it's over, dude.
Yeah.
The joke is over. Just go bang 19-year-olds and be good at movies. That's fine. I don't need you to do the shtick.
He was with that one on Malcolm in the Middle. Not at the time. But you know that the girl on Malcolm in the Middle who was like Malcolm's first love, the kind of brunette girl.
I think so.
You would know her if you saw her. She grew out to be very sexy.
Oh, I know she is. She, what's her name? Rain Man?
I don't know. But he was with her for a little bit.
Redmond or something. Yeah,
she's
very
cute. Very good, very good. A big fan of Malcolm in the Middle. It's so fun. I love it. I saw you as a child. I was not much older than I am now, but here I am as a grown man having sex with a woman. That's fantastic.
Funny.
Yeah.
But he's in on it now, so it's not funny.
Yeah, I mean, and again, there's some. We're going to talk on sidetracks. We're going to talk about some unintentionally funny moments in Coppola movies.
Oh.
But in this movie, there's just those like, I think it's when Mina, she even says to him like, "Well, did she feel any pain?" He's like, "Oh no, we just stabbed her in the heart, cut her head off." Like, and Keanu's like, "Please, sir, it's
not a humorless film."
I want to watch a sitcom about the three of them going around hunting vampires.
That would be good.
Here you have this titan of acting with Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder,
and he's running around in a furry suit.
He's got that too, but yeah,
filmmaking is very silly when you think about it, especially if you've ever been like in a filming situation. It's so awkward. It's so weird. People are standing around not knowing what to do. It's a very strange situation.
A lot of people who want to get into it don't realize it's a lot of waiting.
It's all waiting.
Yeah, it's like 90% waiting.
It sucks.
So people who maybe get into extra work or similar things, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to be in a movie," and they go and sit around for 12 hours and get $100. Like it's
very unglamorous.
Yeah. So when you look at something like this and you see the work with the miniatures and the matte paintings that had to go into it, you can't help but, tip your hat to it. It gets my respect in that regard alone. And I kind of wish that Coppola had done something else like it.
Well, yeah, after that, it's
Jack and wine.
Yeah.
You ever had his wine?
Yeah, it's okay.
We had a mediocre chain Italian restaurant I used to work at, and Ryan did too. We had to greet tables with our featured wine, which was a ridiculous concept. But at one point, it was Coppola, and it was the Claret, I think it's called. It comes in like a golden net.
Okay.
It's really cool looking, and it was just a great talking point. For me that loves movies, that was like a connection you're able to make with people. Like, this is Francis Ford Coppola, and he did a few where they had like movie editions, like King Kong, and I used to collect them, but you can't really collect wine. You just end up drinking it. You're like, I don't have anything. I need to open up a bottle. And
yeah, well, that sounds poor. That's a poor mentality.
I guess you need to have a stockpile. You can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like he is kind of doing just whatever fuck he wants right now.
Well, I think I may have touched on this at the beginning. He's been talking about doing this Megalopolis movie for since as long as I can remember. Just this year, he says he's doing it again. God bless him. I hope he bankrupts himself again doing it. Seriously.
Hey, if Terry Gilliam ended up making Don Quixote, anything is possible. You know,
you watched that too, didn't you?
I didn't like it at the time. I might revisit it, but I love Lost in La Mancha. So apparently, there's another documentary about the making of it succeeding, which I might check out. But Lost in La Mancha, if you've ever been, it's like American movie.
Say it again.
Mancha.
There you go.
Is it Mancha?
It's how I've always said it.
Lost in La Mancha. It sounds so Philadelphian.
Lost in La Mancha. Hey, bring Don Quixote over here. Give him some water.
Give him a hoagie.
Shithole.
Yeah. So if follow through your passions, if I would love to see something new from him. That's not a recut of a film he's done before,
or some digital experiment.
Is that what those like Twixt is kind of?
Yeah, I think they're shot on digital. I mean, they look cool. Tetro looks beautiful. Youth Without Youth actually looks like a fucking cool movie, like story wise. I just didn't get it. I was like, there's only so many shit you can watch. Your fucking eyes start to bleed.
Yeah.
But this is going to be an odd aside. But there was, we were going on about all practical effects and Dracula. There is one effect that's not, and it's not even explained in the movie. And quite frankly, I don't even know why he left it in. I don't know if you remember this. It's when he's taking the carriage ride to the castle, Keanu Reeves' character. There's those blue flames.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that apparently was in the book?
It's in the book, so apparently...
That's why you had to kind of do it?
I guess it's like a myth or like a kind of urban legend. It's in the book. It's one night of the year, blue flames will glow above where treasure is buried.
Right.
And apparently in the book, like the carriage driver is like marking them with rocks so he can come get it in the daylight again.
Yeah.
I don't know. Me, I would just take that out of the movie because you're seeing, you're like, what the fuck is this? It's totally out of place.
You really should watch Nosferatu because it has the editing style of something I would have done in Windows Movie Maker when I was 12. Like, that's the limit of it. And the fact that a major film did like, I don't want to say sloppy, but there is like a few like crossfades that are supposed to be like, oh, he disappeared. And it's watching it today, you're like, oh, it's a crossfade, you know what it is. But it's so cool to think that at the time, 1922 or 23, 100 years ago, that this movie came out, again, of a novel that was in existence that they just took and renamed everyone. It's cool to see like how simple the effects were and how effective it became as a film. And the same thing with this. I think that's what he was going for, was that like that scene where the Dracula shadows on the map behind Harker, really cool stuff. And again, that's another thing you can tell is there. Like, and he appears on the other side. Yeah. It's just great.
It's just a guy. It's such a simple effect. It's more the planning in it is where the skill and the difficulty comes in.
Yeah.
Fuck, what were you just saying? Oh, it's so funny to think. And I mean, I'm sure Nosferatu is very creepy, but that movie probably had people shitting and pissing their pants. And it always makes me think, I've probably told this story before on the show, but I just get a kick out of it. Joe drags me to this old theater to go see Way Out West, the Laurel and Hardy film. And we're sitting there watching it, and, I'm fairly academic when it comes to film, so I can sit there and watch something I don't necessarily enjoy, but I'm watching Laurel and Hardy do this stupid dance, and I just turn to Joe and I go, people were fucking rolling in the aisles laughing at this when it came out. And that
was the funniest thing that ever been put on screen at the time.
It's so funny to think.
Yeah, and it's similar
with this. Look, the fat one's doing it too.
They're together. They're both doing it. Yeah, there's a few of those. And in fact, like I watched Phantom of the Opera, the original too, last month. And that's something that once in a while you'll see come up at a theater with a live orchestra. That's probably the only way you can really enjoy that movie. Because watching it at home, it's great to see, but you're definitely... I like to watch... My mom used to, when I lived at home, used to complain about this. I would watch silent movies really loud because I really do think the music is a huge part of it.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you
can't watch a movie in total silence.
No, exactly. And
unless you're Stan Brakhage.
Well, I think, and that's... I would love to see a silent movie with an orchestra. And I think that... even when they have, you see once in a while, like Raiders or something will come to an orchestra.
I feel like they did, or maybe they were just doing the music from The Godfather, but I feel like they did the movie with the full, what's it, the Mann Center near us does that shit a lot. Or they used to.
When his son starts singing that Godfather theme song.
I haven't seen the movie in a few years, and we'll just spoil it for the people. If you want to join our Patreon, I'm going to defend Godfather 3. Joe is not going to. But they put words to that song. I couldn't believe it.
I wanted to vomit, dude. I really did want to throw up when
And
it
like
happened.
the lyrics are so like. Do you think that song that did not have lyrics? Right? I'm almost certain it didn't.
There's a few baffling decisions in that movie. But Bram Stoker's Dracula, maybe like 15 minutes too long, but you know, there's that whole stretch kind of at the end where they're going to beat his coffin to its arrival back at Transylvania.
Well, yeah, you know.
And then it becomes like an action epic. Like it starts to get really heavy in action.
It's almost like the movie doesn't do a great job of letting you know where people are and what they're doing. And then that's going to sound stupid because they explicitly say like we're going after his coffin, but they're over here, and then like, well, the gypsies are hiding it from him, and we had to fight this. It's like you don't see a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can look. We talk about this all the time with adaptations to movies, and you almost look at the countless adaptations of Dracula, and you're like, oh, I get why these characters were condensed. I get why Renfieldness. Like, you start to appreciate that. Yeah, it might not appeal to fans of the source material, but there's some creative liberties you have to take in adapting something.
Right,
and this is a example. Like those three guys start to get confusing. They're all like fawning over her. They're like, I know it's your love, and I'm like, wait, is she with him? I didn't get it at first.
And not only that, I felt the same way. It starts to take you out of the film because you can't help but go, well, you start to try to predict almost. So you go, well, is she going to dump one of these guys? Is one of these guys going to fight the husband to get like? And you shouldn't give a shit because you should only worry about what the fuck Dracula's
one of these guys
doing.
is going, hee-haw.
Right.
It's just like, what?
I for one always love seeing like especially when it's like old kind of period stuff when there's an American.
Yeah,
and
entirely.
I love that shit because it's always the same character.
One of my favorites is when James Bond's in the bayou and interacts with the old sheriff. I love the fish out of water characters in those scenarios. But yeah, I mean I feel like if you're looking to watch a version of Dracula, this is probably the definitive version. I've heard that the original Spanish version is really good. I've never seen it, but you know, back then they would reshoot the movie with Spanish actors, so they had the sets and they could sell it overseas. And apparently, the Spanish Dracula is really good. I've never seen it, but I really recommend this, and I recommend checking out some of those Nosferatu adaptations, mainly the remake. I think it's in the 70s, and then obviously the original. But
that remake, that's the Werner Herzog one.
Yeah,
correct? Yeah.
And apparently, I don't know much about Klaus Kinski, but apparently not a good guy to work with.
We could spend hours talking about Klaus Kinski. Funny enough, you know, there was a movie I didn't see. I really wanted to. It looked really good. I wonder if you checked it out. It's called Shadow of the Vampire.
I have seen it.
With Malkovich.
It's excellent.
And Defoe.
It is excellent.
It looked incredible.
It's
when
a
it was
really, really
coming
fun
out,
movie.
I was like, that movie looks fucking great. I never saw it.
Ryan's talking about this great movie called Shadow of the Vampire, which essentially reimagines the making of Nosferatu in 1922 as they were using a real vampire, not an actor. And Max Schreck, who played Count Orlok, is played by Willem Dafoe. He's an actual vampire, and Malkovich is the director, and he's trying to conceal from his crew the fact that this guy's a vampire. And it's just, especially if you watch Nosferatu, and because they really do recreate it pretty well. And it's just, I don't know, it's crew members start disappearing. That's the type of vampire shit I like, when you take that, What We Do in the Shadows is the series right now. It's on FX.
You're a big fan of that.
I love the series. I like that type of stuff. I like when you play with the traditional vampire mythology. And yeah, I think for having to tie into one of the most popular, if not the most popular vampire of all time, he does find a great way to be original and do some new things and creative stuff. So
by going back.
Yeah.
So that's what's funny. He finds new ways to do things with old shit.
And it works. It really does.
Very well.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it has its like moments that are a little, dull and boring, but I think the payoff is still worth it.
Yeah.
So it's I guess a recommend from both of us.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't not recommend it. Like I said at the beginning of the show, his shittiest movies are pretty good. Like they really look. At the very least, they look.
Well, we're gonna get into it on the next episode. We'll talk about that, so stay tuned for that. Those of you who support us on Patreon, $5 a month, you get an access to all of those bonus episodes, other polls and stuff we put up.
And you're supporting us.
I don't
know about you, man. There's a couple shows that I don't even listen to because I find it hard sometimes to sit down and listen to podcasts. God bless the listeners, but I still give them $5 a month because one, it's $5 fucking. Who cares? But you support people. Look, you see all the garbage out there. support something that's a little less trash. I don't know. Is this the
look,
pitch?
maybe we'll drop it $1 if we ever do ad reads. But like that's how I look at it. We try not to do ads on this podcast because I think that would not as much as you and I could probably do well at live reads. We're voice guys, but I think we like it just being direct the way it is. We have control over it. There's no other parties involved, excluding you. So thank you for your support. If you do support us at $5 a month, it means a lot to us, and we try to give you back as much content. So those of you on Patreon, stay tuned for that. But probably next month on the podcast, we're going to do The Ice Harvest, which is one we almost did last year. We just didn't have time to do it. It's a Harold Ramis movie. It's kind of Christmassy. I know it's like a Christmas backdrop. It's not overtly Christmas, but...
No, it is.
Is it? Okay, I haven't seen it in a while.
It's like Christmas Eve, I think it's taking place.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about Harold Ramis a lot. There's a couple of his movies I haven't seen. Club Paradise is one that I'm going to check out. That's the one with Robin Williams. It's like a resort-type movie.
Something like that.
Yeah, but Rick Moranis. On paper, it's a movie that is made for me.
Oh, sure.
But I don't know how I'll feel about it.
That was good. Coppola is kind of my wheelhouse. Ramis is yours, so we'll switch it up a bit.
That'll be fun. So to those of you that do support us over on Patreon, thank you so much for that. To those of you that don't, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.